Hart at the Hazbin Hotel, Chapter 29. With Hart at the mercy of Vox and Valentino, things are going downhill and very fast. Alistair is left to wonder what in the hell happened to Hart, and he is slowly becoming affected by her disappearance and trying to figure out who took her in the first place. How will things play out? Let's find out. Chapter 29. No longer yours. Third person point of view. Alistair stood in the middle of the bedroom in the house, looking around for any clues as to who took Hart. But he came up empty-handed. It's been a day since she was taken, and he had no leads as to who it was. He felt so alone right now, and didn't even know how to feel about everything going on. He was such a mix of emotions, and some he didn't even know what they were. When he was at the hotel yesterday, all he did was break down and cry. That was something he never thought he would do in his life. Telling everyone about what happened when he got home. How he found the house a mess, blood on the walls, and Hart not being there. She left her ring behind. That just proved something because she told him that she'd never take it off. He tried his best to not lose control and freak out during the whole thing. He didn't want to take his anger out on others, especially his friends. Charlie had called Hart's sister yesterday as well to let her know what happened. She was over the hotel so fast before you blink. She punched Alistair as soon as she got there and yelled at him, saying it was his fault that her sister got kidnapped, saying he was a failure. That hurt him real good, but he deserved it. Vaggie and Angel had to hold her back from him so she didn't injure him anymore or have him hurt her with the way his emotions are. Lizzie was not happy with him right now. The deer demon agreed with one thing the wolf demon girl said. He was a failure. He couldn't even protect the one he loved most. Alistair didn't even want to go home that night. He actually stayed at the hotel, but he couldn't even sleep. All this had affected him really hard. He felt powerless to even help, and with no leads on who even responsible, it made his head hurt just trying to think. Keeping his emotions under control was hard for him right now. He went home that morning to see if he could find anything that hinted towards who took Hart, but he found nothing. He just decided to clean up the place, starting with the living room and fixing the coffee table. Alistair went up to the bedroom. He stood in front of the door a minute before opening it and heading inside. He decided to start with the bed and clean the sheets and made the bed. He then fixed the bedside table. He picked up the picture that had fallen and broken on the ground. It was a picture of them in the park. He felt his tears come back to him as he sat on the bed. He just looked at the picture. He didn't know what was happening to Hart at this moment. He just hoped it wasn't anything bad. He didn't know how she was. He was afraid of what will happen after he found her. Will they be able to go back to normal? Time would have to tell. Alistair used his powers and fixed the frame the picture belonged in. He put the picture back on the bedside table. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Hart's engagement ring. He played with it a moment in his fingers. He sighed and then put it on the table as well next to the picture. "I'll get you back soon, my love. I promise," he whispered out loud. Alistair went about fixing up the rest of the room. He was going to head back to the hotel to talk with everyone on what to do. He honestly was afraid to even be around his friends. He needed their help, though. If they wanted to find Hart, he needed all the help he could get. He walked out of the bedroom and stood at the top of the stairs a moment, looking one more time, empty-handed. He walked down the stairs and went to the front door. He opened the door and stood there a moment in the doorway. His mind raced, ideas going through his head on what to do with the kidnappers after he got his hold on them. It wouldn't be anything pretty, that's for sure. He sighed and closed the door behind him and made his way back to the hotel. Hart's point of view. I was in pain. I was crying. I couldn't take this. It was only one day, and I was tired of it all. I've been used and taken advantage of, but I was under his control, so I couldn't do anything about it. I felt impure now. This may have been hell, and it was normal for probably others, but I couldn't think the same way in my head. I no longer was just Alistair's, and it sickened me. I never wanted anyone else to have me the way he does, but with Valentino's control on my mind, that had changed. I cried the whole time after the whole scene was over. His control over me wore off. The whole plan to get back at Alistair seemed so extreme. I was no longer just his. I just cried at the thought. I have been bedded by another man. I never wanted that to happen. I just wanted to be for Alistair and no one else. That was no longer the case. I now felt impure, tainted, marked by another. What would Alistair think of me after all this? Valentino bit me, marked me up, and went over old bite marks that Alistair had left on me. It didn't feel the same. Those marks Alistair made on me, I could feel love and pleasure. The ones that Valentino made on me, all I felt was hatred and pain. He bit too hard. I was definitely a guinea pig in this experiment of theirs, too. That scientist friend of theirs was always poking and prodding at me. It was very annoying. He never even said what the serum he made for Valentino even was for. I asked him once, but he ignored me. I didn't feel or look any different. This whole thing was just a mystery to me. I was afraid of the result of it all. I couldn't sleep. My body was in pain. My wounds were not tended to well. My blood was covering me and the ground at my feet. My bruises were dark, and they hurt as well. They chained me back up to the pole once done with me. They didn't even dress me still. It was a new day, and I wasn't even looking forward to what was planned for me. I saw the door to the room open again. It was the wolf demon scientist. He came in with his clipboard as he looked at me. "How are you feeling?" he asked once he got up to me. I didn't answer him. I turned my head away. The last thing I wanted was to talk to him. "Fine, have it your way," the scientist said. He flipped through his clipboard real fast. He was talking to himself. Everything came out back negative. Blast! Even with the serum being 95% there, was still a margin of failure. He flipped through more pages. Hopefully, if my night's work pays off, I'll finally have it at 98%. Plus, I'm trying to make this a permanent thing. Only one way to find out. He flipped his papers back down and set his clipboard aside. He pulled out a syringe with the purple liquid in it again. I struggled a moment, but my chains held me still. I growled at the scientist when he got closer to me. I snapped at him. He jumped back a moment. "Might need to get you a muzzle if you keep acting up," he warned. I continued to growl at him. "If you value your life, then I would cooperate. I'm making a breakthrough for all the damned souls down here, and you're being stubborn." My ears perked up at his words. Help the damned souls? In what way? What was he planning with all this? Fine, I'd cooperate with him. If I wanted to see Alistair again, I had to behave. I calmed a moment and let the scientist get close, and he shot the serum into my arm again. I hissed in pain. It stung a little. "I'll tell them to give you another hour before they do anything." He grabbed his clipboard and started to walk off. "Good luck." As he closed the door behind him, I hung my head. My tears fell again. I didn't want to do this. I had no choice. I was their doll in all this. They made me do these things. I felt tired, but I didn't want to sleep. I fought the urge to do so. "Alistair, please," I cried. "Help me," I whispered. I couldn't fight it off anymore. Darkness consumed my mind as I finally fell asleep. This was not given to me long, as I heard something being banged against the pole I was chained against. It vibrated against me as the sound died off. "Wake up, sleeping beauty!" I recognized the voice as Vox. I opened my eyes to see Valentino towering over me, a cane in his hand, most likely what he used to bang against the pole. "So, little dog, how you feeling today?" Valentino asked as he bent down to be face to face with me. I looked away from him and said nothing. Valentino huffed. "Well, our little scientist friend said that you would be ready to go for testing. We gave you that hour, and I see you spent it to rest." He grabbed my chin forcefully and made me look to him. "Too bad that little bit of rest isn't going to help you," he said with a grin. I looked at the blue demon with fear in my eyes. After all he did to me yesterday, I didn't want him touching me. My body still hurt from what he did. I didn't know if I could take any more of him. It was obvious, though, he wasn't done with me. I finally found words to speak. "What are you injecting into me anyway?" I asked, as I hoped they would give me an answer. Valentino took his hand away and stood up. The two overlords laughed. Vox spoke. "That's none of your business for what our experiment is. I will say, though, it might change the way things go down here." Vox then laughed again. No good. I wasn't getting an answer. I was worried about what they were doing. Valentino patted my head. I growled at the touch. Now, little dog. All in good time." He leaned down again. "By the time we tell you, it'll be too late to do anything," he growled. My ears went flat against my head. I had to still stay strong through all this, though. I had to try my best. "Now, how about we get this little show on the road?" Vox said as he headed to the corner of the room. "Indeed, my friend. Let's start," Valentino said as he watched Vox and he turned back to me. "How about it, dog? Let's put on a show for your little friends today." I flinched at his tone. I watched as he opened his hand and the pink smoke came out again. I tried to hold my breath, but I knew I wouldn't be for long. Valentino laughed at me as he grabbed my throat with force, digging his claws into my skin. I let out a cry in pain and surprise, but the pink smoke soon entered my lungs. He let go of my throat and then went to undo my chains. Valentino walked towards the bed in the room. "Come, dog, let's teach you a lesson." I couldn't fight it as my body started walking. Again, I was under his control and at their mercy. Third person point of view. Alistair was back at the hotel now. He was sitting on the couch with Charlie. The two were trying to figure out who would have kidnapped Hart. Alistair's walk back to the hotel was a slow one. Him lost in his thoughts. He still had his shadows go out and look for her, sometimes further than he ever would have thought to look. Again, they came up empty-handed each time. He had to keep trying. He wouldn't give up. Not for her. He already failed by not protecting her. He needed to make up for it by getting Hart back. As they talked on the couch, they tried to narrow it down to about 4 possible demons. Alistair was having such a hard time. His emotions were all over the place, and it confused the poor man, since he didn't even know what half of them were. He had never been so lost before. He was always so strong and knew what to do, but now he felt so weak and lost. He had to think, though. Maybe if they started with one of them, they could get somewhere. Find a lead. "Think, Al, if we can start somewhere. Who could we start with?" Charlie asked him again. Alistair groaned. I can't only think of the overlords. If they wanted to get back at me, it would be them," Alistair answered her. "Okay, So which ones do you think would want to get back at you? Charlie wondered. Alistair paused to think. I can think of Fox, Valentino, Velvet, or... Alistair looked at Charlie. Or Lucifer, your father. Charlie looked at him sternly. Alistair, I don't think my dad would be out to get you, let alone steal Hart away. Alistair looked down. How would you know that? I know your dad secretly hates me. I'm sure he would want to see me this way. Charlie put a hand on Alistair's shoulder. I know because he knows that Hart is one of my friends. He would never want to hurt me by doing something to my friends. Alistair was soon unsure, but nodded with a sigh. Well, narrows it down to the 3 V's then. Charlie put a finger to her chin. Don't they all hang out at the same place? Charlie wondered aloud. I believe so. The place I hate going by. The porn studio. You think they could be working together? Charlie questioned. It's possible, but if we're going to narrow down to those 3, then... and they are all in the same area, then I say we attack them all. Alistair growled. I say we investigate it first before we go attacking anything, Charlie told him. Alistair calmed and nodded. True, there's only one person I could think that would do that for us. The 2 looked at each other. Angel Dust, they both said at the same time. I think he's there now, actually, Charlie remembered. Think he'll answer the phone? Alistair wondered. I don't know. I'll find out, Charlie said as she took out her phone. The demon princess called Angel. She waited a few rings, but he didn't answer. He might have been away from his phone at the moment. Charlie wasn't sure what to do, so she just decided to leave him a message. Angel, it's Charlie. We have something important we need you to do while you're at the studio. Call me back when you get a chance. Bye. She finished the message and hung up. Charlie turned to Alistair. Hopefully he calls back soon. I hope so. Alistair stood up. In the meantime, I need to see how many people will help me. Alistair walked towards the door. Al, where are you going to go? Charlie asked him as he walked by. I need to go see Lizzie and Kota, Alistair answered. Lizzie isn't happy with you, Al, Charlie pointed out. I don't care. If she actually cares for her sister, she'll help me, Alistair replied. Alistair walked out of the hotel and down the road to Lizzie's house. He had to confront her about this. If she wouldn't do this for him, then hopefully she'll do it for her sister instead. Alistair got to the house and knocked on the door. He hoped she would be home, or at least someone would. He waited a moment and knocked again. Soon the door swung open, and Kota was the one that answered the door. The wolf demon looked at him. You better have a good reason for being here, Kota growled with a scowl on his face. I came to speak with Lizzie. Is she in? No. Lizzie is out looking for Hart. It's what you should be doing as well. Kota tried to close the door on him, but Alistair stopped it with his hand. I have a lead on where she might be. May I at least speak to you? Alistair said to him with pleading eyes. Kota slanted his eyes at the deer demon, but opened the door again. Fine. I'll listen to what you have to say. Kota invited Alistair inside. Kota sat on the couch as Alistair sat on the chair. I'm all ears, Kota said, almost agitated. Alistair went on explaining his theory of how Hart was kidnapped by one of his big rival overlords, and his hunch was that she was being held up at the porn studio. He was asking for help so they could raid the place to look for her. He hated going off on a hunch he had, but it was better than nothing. Alistair also mentioned how Charlie had called Angel Dust to see if he could help while he was at the studio today to snoop around. If they had any chance of finding Hart, then it was the only thing they had. As Alistair talked, Kota just looked at him, but let the deer demon talk. So, all I ask of Lizzie is for her help. to not do this for me, but at least do it for her sister, Alistair finished. Koda was sitting against the back of the couch. He leaned forward. I honestly don't like that you're going off a hunch. Koda paused. Alistair was almost angered, but stayed calm. But I'm going to help you, with or without Lizzie, Koda finished. Alistair was surprised by his answer. He wasn't expecting to get the wolf's help. Alistair was glad nonetheless. It was better than nothing. Thank you, dear sir. I appreciate this so much. Alistair stood up from the chair. Just please tell Lizzie my words. If she wants to give me an answer, she can meet us at the hotel tomorrow. You as well. Koda stood from the chair and stood in front of him. He put his hand out to the demon. Alistair reached out and took his hand to shake it. Hart is my girlfriend's sister. She did a lot to help me and Lizzie get together. So I'm definitely more than willing to help her out, Koda told him. Alistair's smile widened a bit. Thank you. It means a lot to me either way. Koda nodded and showed Alistair out the door. They shook hands one more time before Alistair left. Koda closed the door but stood there a moment. He's holding himself together well. I'm honestly surprised. Koda peeked past the blind of the door window as he watched Alistair walk away. He's really hurting, though. He's good at hiding it, but not that good. Poor guy. I'm sure his anger will crack eventually. Koda then went and sat down to call Lizzie about the conversation he just had. Alistair headed into the city, towards the old theater, where someone still taught dance lessons. He had to talk to Russ. If anyone that would agree to help him, it would be the snake demon. He got to the theater and went inside. Luckily for him, Russ was alone as he practiced. Alistair walked up towards the stage. Russ looked over and saw the deer demon. He stopped. Alistair? Russ made sure as he stopped the music. Russ, may I speak with you? Alistair asked as he walked towards the stage. Russ took a towel to clean the sweat from his face. He walked over to the edge of the stage and sat down. Sure, what's up, Mr. Alistair? Alistair then went and told Russ the same he told Koda, about his hunch on the overlords taking Hart and hiding her at the porn studio, how they called Angel and asked him to look around the place before heading out. Will you help me? Alistair wondered. Russ didn't even need time to think. Absolutely, I'll help you, he answered. Alistair was surprised by his quick answer. Thank you, Russ. It means a lot to me. No problem. Hart's my best friend. I'd do anything to help her, Russ explained. Alistair nodded. Of course. Will you be able to meet at the hotel tomorrow? Russ held his hand out to the deer demon. I'll be there. I promise. Alistair took the snake demon's hand into his to shake it. Back at the hotel, Charlie was talking to Husk and Nifty about the plan that Alistair wanted to carry out. They both agreed since they were Alistair's friends as well as Hart's. Charlie's phone started to ring and he noticed it was Angel. Charlie quickly answered. Angel, thank goodness you called me back. Charlie breathed out in relief. Yeah, I got your message, babe. What's cooking? Angel asked. Alistair and I had an idea that we need you to carry out. Are you still at the studio? Charlie wondered. Yeah, I am. What's this plan? Angel questioned. We have a theory that Hart might be at the studio somewhere. We were wondering if you could sneak around a bit and see if there are any clues, Charlie explained. Here? What makes you think that? Angel wondered. Because of Vox, Valentino, and Velvet. We think one of them might be behind kidnapping Hart to get back at Alistair some way. They usually all hang out there, don't they? So we were thinking you could look around for clues, Charlie told him. Angel paused on the other side of the call. He finally spoke. Charlie, I'll do this for yous. I'll make sure to get what I can without getting caught. For Hart and Alistair. Charlie smiled. Thank you, Angel. That means a lot. I'm sure Alistair will be glad to hear. I just want things back to normal. I hate seeing Al the way he is right now. I can tell he's really holding back his anger from all this, Angel said sadly. Charlie sighed. Yes, I noticed as well. I'm afraid he might crack soon if we don't do something. At least with this, it will hopefully keep him at bay. Angel sighed. Let's hope so. I'll see you later, Charlie. I'll make sure to look around before I leave today. Thank you again, Angel. Talk to you later. Charlie then hung up the phone. The Hell Princess put her head to her hand and groaned. Her head hurt from all this, but she had to keep going. She needed to help get Hart back. Soon, Alistair walked back into the hotel. Charlie saw that his ears were down. He actually wasn't smiling. Just a thin line on his face. That was the first time she's seen him like that. He walked by them without a word and headed towards the steps. Charlie took a few steps towards him. Al, she said to stop him. He stopped halfway up the steps, his hands behind his back. Yes, my belle. Alistair wondered, glancing over his shoulder. How did it go with Lizzie? Charlie asked him. She wasn't home, but young Kota was. He agreed to help me, at least, Alistair answered. I also went to see Russell while I was out. He will help as well. He turned around a little more towards her. If you don't mind, Princess, I'd like to rest in my room for a little bit. Charlie frowned at him. He was upset from today. This happening to him was hurting. He has never experienced this before. Well, can I at least tell you that Angel called me back? He said he would look around the studio before he returns. He said he'll get us what he can, Charlie told him fast before he went off. Alistair nodded. Good. I'm glad to hear he's helping out. Alistair then turned so his back was to Charlie again. Please don't disturb me. He lit off radio static at his statement. We understand, Charlie said and backed away from him. Alistair went and walked off up the steps and down the hallway. He stopped in front of his old hotel room, but when he reached for the knob, he stopped. He glanced down the hallway at Hart's old hotel room. The deer demon walked away from his door and walked down to the other room. He turned the knob, and it was open. He walked in and closed the door behind him. He stood at the door a moment and looked around the room. Memories with the girl came back to him. He walked away from the door and over to the bed. He glided his hand over the still-made sheets. He thought of something he hadn't in a while. The doll he made for himself that looked like Hart. Like how he made one for her that looked like him. He knew she still had it. She kept it on the bedside table. He kept his in the room with all his instruments. He was so glad to have made these dolls, with help from Charlie. The daredemon wanted comfort in some way right now, and this was all he had. This is all he could think of. Alistair snapped his fingers as the doll appeared in his other hand. He looked at it a moment, caressing his fingers against it. He then felt them, tears falling down his face. He brought the doll close to his chest and held it tight. He missed her so much. He felt so horrible for not protecting her when he promised he would. No matter what, he will get her back. Alistair then went and laid down on the bed, the doll still close to him. The radio demon was actually afraid. If Hart was in the studio like he thought she was, he could only imagine what they were doing to her. If they touched her in a way that she would only allow him to do, they would pay. He would make them suffer. Alistair was afraid that Hart would never be the same if they did that to her. He loved her, all of her. She was his. The thought of her no longer being so scared him a lot. He would kill whoever would touch her in that way, taint her. He honestly didn't know how to feel. He would understand if it wasn't her fault, but would he still control that predator side of himself? Alistair just felt more tears fall down his face. I love you still, my wolf, no matter what. Please remember that for whatever happens in the future. The deer demon just had this gut feeling that nagged at him in the back of his heart. Things would never be the way they were once he got her back. Angel walked into the hotel. He was done at the studio and tried his best to sneak around to find any clues. He had to help Alistair in any way he could. He was mainly doing it for Hart, though. She was his friend. She saw Angel as a friend, enough so to ask him to be in her wedding. That was an honor. Although Angel had the feeling that the wedding won't be happening anytime soon, Angel had a thought. If Hart was at the studio, then she probably was at the mercy of Val. He wasn't a nice guy. He may have been Angel's boss, but he was a straight-up asshole. He liked to torture and play around with his employees. If Hart was at his mercy, that wasn't good. Angel knew of Val's ways. He could get what he wanted by controlling the individual. The spider demon honestly didn't want to think of what he would do to her. All he knew is that it wouldn't be good. Angel saw Charlie at the bar when he walked up to it. "Hey, doll, I'm back," Angel greeted her. "Angel, good to see you," Charlie greeted back to him. Angel sat down next to Charlie. He noticed Husk and Nifty were at the bar as well. They must have been talking over stuff. "Charlie, I want to apologize to you." The demon princess turned to face him. "Why?" Charlie wondered. Angel sighed and messed with his hair, pulling it back. "I couldn't find any clues of Hart being at the studio," he admitted. "I tried. I did get caught by someone, and they yelled at me to get out of the area I was in." Charlie placed a hand on Angel's shoulder. "It's okay, Angel. I'm glad to know that you at least tried." "He was weird, though." Angel put a finger to his chin as he remembered the guy in the hallway upstairs. "I'd never seen him at the studio before. He was dressed like a doctor. There's no way he was a new guy, because he was upstairs on the higher levels. Newbies weren't allowed up there, nor would they start them off as a doctor right away." Angel gave a chuckle at that. "What is upstairs?" Husk asked. "Val's personal rooms. He uses them for his own personal use. No windows, and only he has access to them. Almost like a prison, in my opinion," Angel answered him. "So, was this guy being up there and walking around on his own free will? It was suspicious?" Charlie wondered. "Yes. Val never lets anyone walk around up there without him glued behind them. The doctor guy was alone. He threatened to call security on me, so I left. I didn't want to get in trouble. That's all I have. But it might be something." Angel had a small smile come to his face. "I think it's something we could definitely check out," Nifty said. Charlie nodded in agreement. "I say that definitely has to be something. Why a scientist, though?" Charlie wondered as she put a hand to her chin and thought. "I did hear Val mention something about a scientist friend working on a project of his. Never said what it was, though. That might be the guy I ran into," Angel mentioned. Charlie got a look of worry in her eyes. "Angel, if Hart is there, you don't think that Val has that scientist experimenting on her, do you?" Angel went silent a moment. He looked at Charlie with a blank expression. "To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if he was." "We have to find Hart!" "We have to go to the studio," Nifty said sternly. Charlie shook her head. "We can't. Not right now. Not with Alistair the way he is at the moment." "Where is Smiles, anyway?" Angel asked as he looked around the lobby. Charlie sighed again. "He went up to his room. He doesn't want to be bothered right now. I'll tell him the news when he comes down." "He's not doing too well, huh?" Angel frowned. "Not one bit." Charlie put a hand to her forehead. "I'm afraid he's going to snap any moment." "He probably will. There will probably be something that will push him, though," Husk said as he was cleaning a glass. Charlie looked at the cat demon. "When he does, I don't want to be in his way." Hart's point of view. It had to be nighttime now. I honestly couldn't tell since there were no windows in the room. I was chained back up to the pool. I felt so weak. I was exhausted from them doing things to me. Valentino did what he needed to do and left to check up on his employees to make sure they were doing their jobs. Made me wonder if Angel was here. If so, would he know to even look for me? I had no way out. No strength to really try and break free. I eventually succumbed to sleep. Finally, I could rest a bit. My eyes slid closed and I didn't want to open them again. I had a nightmare. It was of Alistair. No, why did it have to be of him? The last thing I needed is a nightmare of him. He was hurting me, using his powers against me, my blood all over him. He never said he would do that. He was yelling at me about something, but words were distorted and muffled. I tried to make it all disappear, make the nightmare go away. I was trapped. I curled myself into a ball, my hands on my head with my ears pinned back. The nightmare faded. I then seemed to be in a closet now. I was sitting there with my head covered. The door to the closet opened. I was afraid it was Alistair. But to my relief, it was Elena, the little girl from my dreams. I hadn't dreamt of her in a while. I actually felt my fear fade away as I felt joy go through me. Elena, I whispered, my ears going up. Found you, Mom! The girl giggled, her tail wagging behind her. I laughed as well. Yes, you did. I must have still had a sad expression on my face because the girl frowned. She crouched down and looked at me. Mom, you don't look happy. What's wrong? Nothing. I was thinking of a nightmare I had, I told her. Elena smiled and just went up next to me and then hugged me. I was surprised by the hug. I calmed and then wrapped my arms around the girl. I felt tears starting to fall now as I held her. Why couldn't this little girl be real to me right now? I would feel so much better. Elena pulled out of the hug. Mom, please don't cry, the girl pleaded. I'm sorry, I said as I wiped the tears away. I'm just happy to see you. You make me feel better, I told her. I won't go anywhere, Mom. I promise, the girl chuckled. Just don't let Dad see you sad and frowning. I reached out and patted the girl on the head. Give me another hug, and I'll feel better. I promise. She smiled again and then went and hugged me around the neck. You just have to remember what Daddy says all the time. You're never fully dressed without a smile, we said simultaneously. We both chuckled softly from that. I just held her tight for a moment. At least my dreams made me feel better. Will you help me find Dad? She asked me as I let her out of the hug. I can never find him. I chuckled, of course. If I know him, he's cheating somehow. The girl laughed as well from that. I got up from the floor of the closet and walked out of the room with her. I was jolted away from my sleep from a banging. I looked around and saw that I was still in the room, held against my will. My dream faded and my sadness returned. I sighed, my ears going back down. I'm sorry, Elena. Our game will have to wait, I thought. I noticed the wolf demon scientist was in front of me. Who knows how long I was even asleep for? You've been asleep for a while, the scientist said. I came in last night, but didn't want to bug you. I saw how bad you looked. I figured I'd let you rest. Can you at least tell me what time it is? I asked him softly, getting my voice. It's morning now. Only around 10:30, I'd say. You slept basically the entire afternoon and into the night. I don't blame you, though. It's exhausting, I assume, the scientist said as he pulled the small table that had some equipment on it. He brought it to the front of me. I'm always in pain, I told him. The scientist said nothing, nor gave me a look of sympathy. He didn't care. I don't know why I bothered. He pulled out an empty syringe. Now, let's get these tests done, and then I can leave you alone for now. I sighed and just let the doctor do what he needed. Third person point of view. It was now the next day. Alistair didn't come out of the room the rest of the day yesterday. He didn't come out till this morning. He was alone in the lobby as he sat on the couch. He tried to wrap his head around everything, trying to think of a plan. He hoped Lizzie and Coda came to the hotel today. Alistair got up from the couch and went to the kitchen. He decided to make himself some coffee, but he knew that it probably wouldn't help him. When it was brewing, he looked around the kitchen. Memories flashed at him for a split second. He walked over to where the chair sat in the corner where Hart would sit, watching him, laughing with him. The smile in the corner he enjoyed so much seeing. He looked at it a moment more. The world around him started to distort as the radio static grew in sound. He didn't even realize that he was raising his powers. Even though he felt anger, tears fell down his face. He put his hands on the wall. His claws then dug into it. He slid them down, leaving gashes now in the wall. His static was very loud now as his voodoo symbols circled him. He had to calm down. He didn't want his anger to get to him. Not yet. Control. He took some deep breaths and felt his powers die down and then soon disappear. He tried to stop his tears from falling. The door to the kitchen opened. Charlie and Vaggie walked in. They had heard Alistair's static through the hotel almost. Then saw him standing in the corner of the kitchen, his claws dug into the wall still. They saw the deep gashes left behind. Charlie walked up to Alistair. Vaggie held onto her hand. "Alistair?" Charlie called out to him. His head snapped up, and he looked over her with a look of surprise. "Charlie!" He pulled his claws out of the wall. "I'm sorry about the wall. I wasn't thinking." The deer demon put his hands behind his back. "Al, it's okay. I was just worried about you. We heard you from upstairs." "You did?" Alistair put his ears back a moment. The two nodded. Alistair looked away from them. "Sorry about that. I was losing it a little bit there. It's getting harder to hold back." Charlie put a hand to his arm. "We understand. Once everyone gets here, we'll go over everything, okay? Can you at least tell me what Angel told you yesterday?" Alistair wondered. Charlie gave him a small smile. "Of course. We'll wait out here for you, okay? Take your time." Alistair nodded. He looked back to the claw marks on the wall now. He sighed and went back to get his coffee and met the two out in the lobby. Angel was up in his room, relaxing a little bit before he had to meet everyone downstairs. He had music playing in the background. He was just looking at his phone, taking selfies here and there as well. He would send some to Russ he liked. The snake demon loved the pictures Angel took. Angel got a text from Russ saying that he was almost at the hotel. He couldn't wait to see him. Then his phone went off as he got an email. It was important. Angel looked and saw it from his boss, Valentino. "Oh, good. Wonder if he has another gig for me. That was fast," Angel said with a laugh. Angel opened the email, and all it said was, "Why don't you help?" There was a video attached to it as well. Angel was confused. He clicked on the video attachment. It seemed normal at first, but as Angel watched, his eyes got wider. Soon he had tears form and then fall from his eyes. His bottom set of arms covered his mouth. He couldn't believe what he was watching. What the fuck was this? He couldn't watch anymore. He quickly closed his phone and ran out of the hotel room, almost tripping as he did. If what he just saw was true, everyone had to know what was happening. He ran and soon got to the lobby. Everyone was down there. Even Russ had just walked in and went over to the group. He was breathing hard now as his tears still fell. His heart raced from what happened. He wanted the images he saw to leave his memory. Charlie looked up and saw Angel at the top of the steps. He looked like he was in a state of shock. "Angel, what's wrong?" she asked worriedly. Angel said nothing as he quickly ran down the steps and stood in front of Alistair. The radio demon looked up with him with a raised eyebrow. The spider demon held out his phone to the radio demon with a shaky arm. "Al, I think there's something you have to see." End of chapter 29. Ooh, cliffhanger. Haha. What could be on the phone that affected Angel so much? I guess we'll have to find out. Until next time, guys. See ya.